O.J., Susan Smith, the grand jury in Oklahoma City. In each case, one crucial factor has been missing: an eyewitness, the honest word of the innocent bystander, more compelling than DNA, blood types, and bloody gloves. Who can refute testimony saying, "I saw that person do it"? Well, it turns out the most reliable witness of all may not be that reliable. Out on the border of California and Nevada, there is Whiskey Pete's Casino, offering Las Vegas-bound travelers their first chance to chase gambling gold. But on Thanksgiving weekend 1987, the police were hunting for something far more precious: a 7-year-old boy named Alexander Harris, who disappeared from the hotel's video arcade while his parents were gambling. 5 eyewitnesses claim to have seen the boy walking through the hotel with a man shortly before he disappeared, and the police made these composite sketches. After a month of searching in the desert, the boy's body was found. He had been smothered to death. 6 weeks later, the police announced they had found the killer, a computer programmer named Howard Haupt, who had been vacationing at Whiskey Pete's that weekend. Did you have anything to do with the murder of Alexander Harris?
No, absolutely not.
The authorities did not believe him, and Haupt was put on trial for the murder and kidnapping of Alexander Harris. The prosecution's case was built around those 5 eyewitnesses.
He's right here.
And each one of those eyewitnesses would sit up there in the witness stand and they would point at me. It would put like an electric shock that just ran right down my spine.
A positive, confident eyewitness identification is probably amongst the most powerful evidence you can have.
Elizabeth Loftus, a professor at the University of Washington and an expert on memory, finds that juries too often consider eyewitnesses infallible. Trouble is, says Loftus, they're not.
Unfortunately, sometimes when you remember something, you remember it. But other times when you remember something, you're remembering a construction, a creation. You're taking bits and pieces of information that you got from different sources, different times. You blended them together and you've created a memory for something that never really happened.
Loftus testified for Haupt at his trial, telling the jury that bad police work influenced the eyewitnesses' memories. How do you explain the fact that 5 people took the stand and said about Howard Haupt, he's the guy?
They weren't 5 independent witnesses. They were interrogated by the same people. They were exposed to each other's information. If you inject 5 different people with the same poison, you can kill them all.
Just how reliable is our memory? Here at Iowa State University, Professor Gary Wells is conducting an experiment. We filmed it with our hidden cameras. Students are led to believe they witnessed a crime, the theft of a camera.
I need you to identify for me the person that you saw.
They are questioned and asked to identify the criminal from photographs. They're pretty sure of themselves.
Probably this guy with a haircut, maybe.
She probably had the closest resemblance.
Most like that guy.
But all of these people chose the wrong picture.
They're really trying to genuinely and honestly give the best answer that they can.
It might be this girl, I don't...
It doesn't take strong-arm kinds of manipulations in order to influence them.
Wells says his experiments show the students can be wrong up to 85% of the time. So what about police lineups, for instance?
Number 3.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm positive.
You know, the kind we see on TV all the time. You've been doing this for a few years now.
Yes, sir.
How reliable is eyewitness identification?
In my opinion, it's very reliable.
Sheriff's Deputy William Gilbert oversees lineups for Los Angeles County. Okay. Witness is sitting here.
Witness sitting here.
And this is two-way
Yes,
mirror.
Sir. And the suspects are behind that.
Okay, so he thinks eyewitnesses are essential and very accurate if the witness gets a good look at the suspect. But he admits lineups are far from perfect.
Under stressful situations, it's very tough to remember what somebody looks like.
And Professor Loftus says stress is just one factor in making the wrong pick. The way investigators question the witness can affect memory.
They might say something like, well, you seemed to slow down when you passed over number 3. What did that slow down mean to you?
The police are manipulating people without their knowing it?
Police are definitely manipulating without the witness knowing it, sometimes without the officer knowing it, and oftentimes inadvertently.
Deputy Gilbert says that could happen, but here in Los Angeles, every effort is made not to draw attention to a suspect.
They have to be similar in appearance. If they have facial hair, the majority of them will have facial hair.
Number 2, make a quarter turn to your right and face the metal door.
Gilbert, using inmates from the county jail, showed us what one of their lineups would look like. Has it ever happened that you've stood and watched somebody pick the absolute wrong person in a lineup?
Oh, yes. And I've also seen it the other way, where the individual is staring straight at the suspect, but he puts, I don't know anybody. So it works both ways.
Entire line, take 2 steps forward, put your feet up against the base of the light bar.
That is borne out in statistics from the FBI, which say that in rape cases where DNA tests are conducted, 30% of the suspects turn out to be innocent. Which brings us back to the case of Howard Hopp. Were these witnesses who testified against you lying?
No, they weren't. They were remembering what their brain was allowing them to remember.
Hopp believes in his case the witnesses were influenced by detectives. He says this woman, Carrie Roja, was...
Over here, he's wearing a gray and blue tie and a gray jacket.
Are you sure now, today, that Howard Hopp is the man that you saw back then?
When I close my eyes and I picture the people walking together, the boy and the man, I see Howard Hopp.
Yet before seeing Hopp as the suspect, Roja first identified 3 other men. Only after she was shown his photograph did Roja identify Hopp in person.
You have to recognize that if you show a person's photograph and later on that person is seen live, that there will be and can be an increased familiarity in that live identification that's due to the photograph.
And then there's that scene in a courtroom where the eyewitness says, I am 100% sure this is the man I saw. Legal experts say the confidence of witnesses in their choice is crucial and very convincing to the jury. So, can a witness be made more confident?
You can manipulate the confidence of a witness, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to tell the witness, lots of other people picked him, that's the right answer, good girl.
When you picked Howard Hopp as the man that you saw, did the police in any way validate your choice and say, yeah, that's the guy, you're right, that's the guy?
They didn't say you're right, but I was told that other witnesses had also identified him.
At that point, you must have thought, well, okay, I guess I really did choose right.
Probably.
I don't agree for a moment that the procedure in this case violated any textbook procedure in investigating eyewitnesses.
This probably is a capital case.
Mel Harmon, the prosecutor in the case, defends the integrity of the police investigation, saying any allegations otherwise are just desperate tactics by the defense team.
That they're using what we call as the SOTI defense, some other dude did it, then they're going to say that the police fouled up in their investigation. Well, I don't think the police fouled up.
For Howard Hopp, who couldn't believe what was being said about him from the witness stand, the end came after weeks of testimony.
Not guilty of count 1.
This jury chose not to place its faith in eyewitnesses.
Juries are unpredictable. You just don't know how they're going to rule. And because of that, I feared the worst.
That being?
That they would have come back guilty on both counts, and that ultimately I'd be sentenced to death.
Hopp sued the Las Vegas Police Department for violating his civil rights and won. The police would not be interviewed for this story. Today, Howard Hopp, who spent his life savings defending himself, is a free man. Free, but changed in ways he never suspected.
I fear for things I can't control. So now when I travel, I'm very, very, very scared unless I can account for my whereabouts specifically.
You won't go anywhere unless you have an alibi.
That's another way of saying it.
Next, there are no big egos.